6:30, and I'm calling the meeting of Monday, November 26th to order. I want to recognize that we have a number of people here, and I'll just ask you, just please state your name and what you're here for, like Conservation Commission or something like that, and then we'll go back to the agenda. So, Karen, you want to start?
Yep, I'm Karen Murphy, and I'm here for the Conservation Commission. Linda Lemke, likewise.
Ellie Mayanen for CCPG.
Charlie Bannis for the floodplain ordinance.
Tom Martin for the flood and fluvial erosion ordinance.
Tammy Martin, same.
Steve Lemke, same.
Bill Jewell, the Conservation Commission.
Thank you. So the rules of procedure are the normal rules of procedure. Just going to remind everybody that all remarks need to be addressed to the chair, and then you need to get permission to speak. Are there new additions to the agenda this evening?
For me.
Actually, that's redundant. Are there additions? Are there changes to the agenda order?
Not for me.
I would like to, I'm assuming everybody had a chance to read the minutes in the
Yes.
folder this weekend. And I would like to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of November 12th, 2018.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion?
I just had a couple, did you have edits? I had questions.
I had something I wanted to add, but why don't you,
Oh, I was asked if we can add the, as an audit draft financial statements, it referred to a memo. Can we attach that to this,
Sure.
to the minutes? Because the motion was to make the motion, move the funds around in accordance with the memo. So it's not clear as to what was meant unless the memo's attached.
Good idea.
Yes.
It looks like Cheryl Franklin resigned, but it looks like there's no motion to accept her resignation.
We're going to talk about that tonight.
So she didn't resign, or she did?
She did. We were just kind of waiting to see what the issues were and stuff like that. So we didn't have any information about it.
And then I had a question. I wasn't clear about what the discussion with respect to the FFEH mailing materials, where that ended up. It said there was discussion, we need more funds, there's explanation about potential accounts, there's additional discussion, but there didn't seem to be a resolution or a
It was
motion
about
as to what
postage. There
happened.
didn't need a motion.
No.
Wasn't it about postage?
A, it was about postage. B, we don't know if there will be a mailing, if there will need to be a mailing yet. So we couldn't take any action. It was just like, do we have funds to cover a townwide
We should
mailing?
probably just put like the end result of that discussion if,
We have
because
to
I
wait
couldn't
till-
figure out what happened.
We probably have to wait till tonight, Gabby. Just
No, I mean, well, there should have been an end result of that discussion, right? Like to be tabled or to be continued next meeting or no action taken.
or dependent on,
Something that says like no action taken because, we're waiting on information or something, so I could figure out what the resolution of that evening's discussion was.
I suggest we say that the minutes be revised to say no action was taken and to be continued at the next select board meeting. Will that do?
Yeah, I just thought that,
Yeah.
reading, I had no idea
You're
what happened.
hanging.
Yeah. Left me hanging.
So can I revise my motion?
you
Oh,
may.
you have something?
Well, I have more questions.
Okay.
The Green River Road conclusions and lessons, it seems like there were some sort of conclusions and lessons that should be either discussed in the narrative or if there's a memo attached so people have an understanding of what was actually discussed.
So we circulated during the meeting a table of, a timetable and then a schedule, and I
It was
asked.
also in the folder.
I was going
And
to
it
say,
was
that was
in
in
the
the folder
folder.
prior to the meeting.
So we should probably just attach that along with the audit memo so that people when they're reading the minutes know what was discussed.
We don't usually make a practice of attaching documents to memos, to the minutes.
Well, I just think we should, the audit one actually references the memo in the motion. And I would just say, then I would put it in the narrative, because otherwise you don't actually know what the lessons learned. So this is the one place where everything's memorialized in our records. When we go back to look if we see
We
something.
did talk about the lessons learned on the minutes. If you would like Peter to go back and enumerate them, that is a request to
I
change
have
the
them right
minutes.
here. I mean, I think if there's a table, just attach the table and say the discussion, the lessons learned were here. It seems like if there were lessons learned, we should have it somewhere. That's my only point.
Yeah, we have them for our reference, but we can attach them to the minutes. Thank you.
And I couldn't figure out what, the BBCC agreement questions, I couldn't figure out what the actual, I mean, it's confusing when there wasn't a motion to do something. It says that the option was presented to do it, I guess, to do the contract as a separate article. Should the select board so desire, all agreed that made sense. So do we have a motion to put a specific article on the town warrant relating to that item? Or I was just trying to figure out what the, again, sort of like what was the action item to be decided on? If so, what was, if we want to put something on the town meeting warning, then we need to give the language, right?
So Peter and I will have a discussion this week with Dawn and Sarah to follow up on that conversation, which was just a general conversation relating to questions that Gordon raised. And then we will make a recommendation to the board to consider for further, the next step. So we were just kind of listening and getting information, and then we're going to involve the Broadbrook Community Center people again, and then report back to the select board on the December 10th meeting.
Okay. That's not necessarily what I took away from those meeting minutes, just so you know. I thought you'd agreed to put something on the warrant.
No, Peter, I think what it says there, I don't have the minutes in front of me, I think it says that Peter suggested we do present a separate artitle.
And there was an if
In
there, I think.
If the select, should the select board so decide,
Yes.
all agreed
Yeah.
that made sense. So I wasn't sure what that made
Oh.
sense actually meant as far as an action. So that was just to clarify.
So
what
I think
was
there's a
going on.
lot of work to do on the minutes. I think perhaps you should rescind your motion to
Okay.
approve the minutes, and then Peter will work on them some more. Verena, did you have an edit to make?
Well, it wasn't so much an edit as a sense of the BBCC agreement conversation that, I think that I would have been more comfortable if it had said that that the select board in principle supports the BBCC and that the details will be worked out. That was just a concern that I had, that I don't think the BBCC is controversial, at least in terms of my sense of how the board is responding to it. And that, I just thought that the discussion, what was in the minutes wasn't really as positive as our conversation about it.
Yeah, so I think two things. One is that we still have, they presented us with a proposed contract. We have had 2 nights of discussion about it. Peter and I think you've been invited to this meeting, Gordon, will meet with Dawn and Sarah to follow up on the conversations and to present a proposal to the select board for consideration. But the point was that the relationship, we may decide on a relationship, but the cost of the relationship has to go into the budget, which is approved by the town.
Okay.
And so it's not that the select board is opposed to this relationship, it is that the budget is not our decision to make.
Okay, one more comment, that this meeting was on Veterans Day, and I think we were remiss in I guess I wasn't at the meeting because I was sick, so I would have said this if I were there, but I think we were remiss in not recognizing our veterans and to make a statement, at least if not in these meeting minutes, meaning the November ones, but in the current meeting minutes, that we were remiss in thanking and letting our veterans know that we appreciate all that they do for our country and the sacrifices they make.
Well, that should be entered into these minutes.
We can do that, yeah. Thank you, Gabby. Any other comments on the minutes of the 12th? Would you like to rescind your motion?
I hereby rescind my motion to accept the minutes, and
Do we have to make do we have to vote on that?
No, you don't.
no.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks for your patience,
Dan Zambreski, do Do you have a highway update to make to
Can I,
us?
can
Sorry,
I-
1 minute, please, Dan.
I'd just like to make a comment in regard to all the stuff that you're saying, Gabby. I think that we need to, I would feel much better about minutes in general if we had an authority that legislates or governs how the minutes are written. I've never heard of minutes having attachments myself. So, and I've been to a lot of meetings and a lot of minutes. So, I'm not sure that that's correct. So it may be that we have to express what was decided or was not decided and say that there will be action taken up at the next meeting or there was no action. But anyway, there is a governing document for how minutes should be written, and I'd like that to be produced for the select board for the next meeting.
Suggestion.
That's your action.
One of many.
I mean, one of the, we do from time to time attach something or give a link or something like that so that people can be more fully informed. So I think we have to think about whether it is links and attachments or not. or
Well, I'd
just-
like to know whether it, if
So-
I know it's,
But we should
I don't
be
think Robert's
consistent.
rules
Yeah.
No, I think it
cover
depends.
that.
I don't think there's any real rules about meeting minutes per se. People have various ways of doing them. Certainly on different boards, they have different meanings. This one's obviously relating to sort of a public meeting versus a nonprofit
Right.
board. So, but I do think like, particularly when motions reference a memo or something, I should either be in, because one of the things you have to remember we go back and do is say, oh my gosh, what did we do 3 years ago? Did we make that journal entry? And if it's not actually in the memo or attached to the memo, we can't go back and trace it. So I know that's happened a lot, especially with like issues with dogs, for example. You go back and say, what did we do 3 or 4 or 10 years ago? And really, these are the only
The
technical
documentation.
records,
Yeah.
right? So,
I can speak to part of that in that I don't remember the specific statute off the top of my head, but state statute does state that is for select board minutes, that the only requirements per the state are who was present at the meeting, the topic that was discussed, and any actions taken. That's what the state mandates for minutes. Anything beyond that is up to the select board.
Well, maybe we should have a working document that outlines what the minutes should have, and then, because your point is very well taken as far as I'm concerned, that the documentation can be vital. So
I can draft something, but then I'll need input from all of you prior to next
I'm going to
meeting.
do some research and I'll tell you what I find.
Thank you, Richard.
So perhaps you and Peter could communicate prior to the meeting and come up with a style manual
Yes.
for minutes.
Let these minutes so indicate.
Let us have another procedure to follow. Are we done with the minutes? Mr. Zambrowski, welcome back.
Oh, how are you?
Would you like to give us a little update on the highway?
Yeah, I was gone. Alan was taking care of things, and he did a very good job, and I think you guys would appreciate what he did. And
We do.
the first storm, they had some breakdowns that put them behind. I still got one truck that's down. Actually, I got 3 trucks that needs some major repair work on, so hopefully by this week or next week, they'll be all back up and running. We're still doing culverts, the weather breaks. I got a couple culverts on Green River Hill we're gonna be doing this week if the weather stays the way it is, and that's about it.
Yeah, I think they managed pretty well with 3 people during a snowstorm, right, and broken equipment, so, yeah, please do.
Any major breaks,
Our
Dan?
thanks.
One, the 2012, one time we lost the gearbox and the sandwich for the bed chain. The purple truck yesterday, we've been having trouble with it. That's the 98. We've been having with it just trouble quitting. And I think we're probably gonna have to put a new computer in it because it just shuts down. And then Dickey's truck, the 2012, is gonna need a 2 EGR valve. And what it is, they're gonna have to tear the motor to get to it, so. Just
How's your-
Little things,
How's your repair budget
little
going?
headaches.
so.
More importantly, how did you make out?
You know what? For the first time in over 40 years, I sat and watched it snow, and it was kind of enjoyable. Yeah, we had over 2, we were hunting in snow over our knees.
Wow.
Yeah, we had two big snowstorms, both of them were over a foot up there.
Oh my God. Well,
That's happening tonight up there too, isn't it?
Yeah, they're supposed to get pounded again, so.
jeez.
Well, there's still muzzle loader season.
Yeah, that starts, Vermont starts this Saturday.
I know where there's lots of deer.
No, the boys did a good job, and
They
No, and
did.
thank you for coordinating with them,
Yeah.
and thank them for us, please.
Recreation Commission update.
Yay.
Wendy Stone and Eric Jones. You want to stand up or maybe come over
Why
into
don't
the
they just
session?
bring some, can we just get them some chairs?
Rolo or?
Cheers. Wow, I don't want to make them roll over. Give you find two more chairs.
You just take that off.
Official chairs. Big chairs, big chairs.
Wow, those are very
Fancy.
astute.
Get out of
They're
here.
on.
Move up so we can.
All right.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So I just wrote a report here that I'll read off to you. The Guilford Recreation Commission was composed of 4 members for the majority of this reporting period. Eric Jones, Jake Dixon, Todd Schreck, and myself, Wendy Stone. We have recently welcomed 2 new members to the commission, Chris Zapala and Jacob Leach. We still have 1 additional vacancy to fill, and we are thankful to have the support and guidance of our Select Board Liaison, Miranda Borsch. Our commission is focused on providing recreation opportunities to Guilford residents while bringing the Guilford community together. We appreciate it having collaborated with many Guilford organizations through the programming this year. Last winter, the Rec Commission worked with CC4G to organize and host an open gym playgroup at the Guilford Central School. This was for children ages birth to 5 and their families. Rec Commissioner Todd Schreck took the lead in developing and implementing this program along with CC4G. Playgroups were held on 8 Saturdays in December and January. These playgroups were free to attend and were well attended. The playgroups provide an opportunity for children and their parents to play together while socializing with other families in the community. The Rec Commission is collaborating with CC4G again this winter to offer the playgroup at the beginning of December. The next session will begin. In May, the Rec Commission continued with its tradition of hosting the annual bike night in Guilford at the Central School. In spite of cold temperatures and light rain, we enjoyed hosting approximately 30 children and their parents and siblings who rode bicycles around the school loop parking lot to music and who decorated their bicycles and participated in bike skill challenges. Food and beverages were sold to supplement the event. This year, the Rec Commission adopted a committee to organize and oversee the Playscape. This committee is chaired by myself and worked with CC4G and other community members to ensure that the Playscape property met the insurance regulations from the town insurance agent passive. These projects included the creation of a parking area that was separate from the play area, filling in some holes in the terrain, establishing a schedule for weekly inspection of the property, and also creating a list of rules for the use of the Playscape. The rules and other relevant information will be posted on a custom sign, which will be built and donated by Michelle and Robin Frazee. CC4G purchased several picnic tables and purchased the boulders which were needed for the separation of the parking and the play areas. The Playscape was frequently used this spring, summer, and fall by community members as well as Guilford organizations. The Guilford Free Library used the park for their library camps, and it is regularly used by their homeschooling group. The Playscape was also used for several events hosted by CC4G. The Playscape will be used this winter for cross-country skiing. The Playscape usage would not have been possible had it not been for the generous donation by Vermont Roadworks, who provided mowing and maintenance of the Playscape during the spring, summer, and fall. We are sincerely grateful to the Vermont Roadworks for their support of recreation in Guilford. The Rec Commission worked with Craig Whipple, the Director of Vermont State Forest Parks and Recreation, to draft a memorandum of understanding which clarifies the collaboration between Guilford Recreation Commission and Fort Dummer to enable free day usage of Fort Dummer by Guilford residents. Fort Dummer is mostly located in Guilford, which is one of the reasons why the Rec Commission was interested in promoting its usage by Guilford residents. The Rec Commission established a system which involves Guilford residents picking up a free day pass from the town office, which is presented upon arrival to Fort Dummer. The total dollar amount of $3 per person will be deducted from the Recreation Commission's budget and paid to Fort Dummer at the end of their season. And a full launch of this program is anticipated in the spring of 2019 for 3 seasons of usage by Guilford residents. In July, the Rec Commission hosted a community picnic at Fort Dummer as an attempt to bring community members and organizations together for a family-friendly socialization. Fort Dummer waived the fee for the use of the property for the picnic. The picnic was a potluck luncheon including a grill, badminton, horseshoes, disc golf, and other family activities. While the attendance at this picnic was low, it felt like a good first attempt at a community picnic towards the goal of increasing recreation and socialization within our community. The Guilford Rec Commission was proud to facilitate the collaboration with 4 other Guilford organizations to host the Haunting of Guilford Center this year. The Conservation Commission, the Historical Society, CC4G, and the Guilford Free Library all participated in this event. And we are pleased to report that 5 successful Halloween events took place at the Guilford Center this October. The Rec Commission hosted approximately 200 people at the Guilford Central School for our 7th annual Trunk or Treat and Dance Party event. This year, a handful of people braved the cold rain and decorated their trunks and hosted and handed out candy to the children who were in costume. And they were competing for one of 3 trophies. This was followed by a dance party in the gym, which was video DJ'd by Eric Jones, with music videos projected onto large floor-mounted screens, which enabled the children to shadow dance. Other features included a costume fashion show, tarot card reading, photography, which was donated by Joanna Wilson Phillips and Nicholas Phillips. We had glitter tattoos, sensory boxes, and a snack bar. This year, the Rec Commission adopted a committee which is called the Bill Coke Trails, which is chaired by Jake Dixon. This group of volunteers is dedicated to creating and maintaining Nordic ski trails in Guilford. The group is named in honor of Guilford native Olympic medalist Bill Coke, who grew up in Guilford and was known to ski to and from school and all around town. Bill Coke attended one of our meetings and offered his support to our efforts of the Recreation Commission to promote people getting involved in Nordic skiing, which is a sport that he is so passionate about. We have secured permission to create 4 trails in Guilford, which we plan to have ready for skiing this winter. These 4 trail locations include the Guilford School Loop Trail, the Fairgrounds Trail, the Playscape Trail, and the Carpenter Hill Trail. The Rec Commission is working with the Guilford Free Library to coordinate a program of lending skis, boots, and poles, following the model that the library has established for lending snowshoes. We are seeking donations of cross-country skis, boots, and poles of all sizes for use with this lending program through the library. The Rec Commission is purchasing a shed to be located at the library to house the ski and snowshoe equipment for this winter. The Rec Commission is planning to host a winter social this winter. The date and location are to be determined, but we are anticipating an all-ages event to include sledding, skiing, and hot chocolate. We are anticipating the opportunity to begin hosting events at the Broadbrook Community Center and have had preliminary communications with BBCC members regarding events hosting. The Rec Commission always welcomes suggestions from Guilford residents regarding classes, events, or activities that people would like to participate in. Finally, the Rec Commission has a website, guilfordrecreation.org, and also a Facebook page, Guilford Recreation. Both are created and managed by Eric Jones. These digital resources are used to communicate with Guilford residents to share local recreation-related information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Marvelous.
Well done.
Yes. I just want to say, is it like 4 years you guys have been in existence now? That's incredible. If you think about 0 to now, it's amazing. So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Any questions that people have?
Well, I just wanted to say, as the select board liaison, that Wendy and Eric and Taj and Jake, they really get it done.
Yeah.
And in terms of just patience and welcoming and coordinating, it's really, you set a very high bar for volunteering in this town.
Definitely.
And, I mean, especially fun volunteering. It's been great being part of that.
Thank you.
I don't know if there's a theme to the Gazette this year, but I think it would be great to see that report intact in the Gazette, which the deadline is the 1st of December, I think, for the coming. You'll probably do an abbreviated report for the town report, for the town meeting, but there's so much wonderful information, and it's so encouraging about volunteers and the difference that people can make in this community that I would love to see it in the Gazette. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to you guys too for your support and with all of our ventures, and also to all of our volunteers. The community, we've had a lot of support from people, and we couldn't do a lot of these projects without volunteerism, and especially Wendy for kind of just being the chair and holding down the whole thing. And it's a lot to kind of manage, and you've done a great job with that, so appreciate that. So thank you.
Yes.
Well,
While you're sitting there, do we have a recommendation for a commissioner, another commissioner appointment? Is that?
Oh,
Jake Leach, yes.
Oh, okay, so Jake,
Yeah.
is already volunteering, but you would like.
We voted him in at our last meeting, but we're
We
waiting
need
to
to
have
approve.
your approval.
Is there a recommendation?
Well, I move that the select board approve Jake Leach. And is Chris already officially in the fold? Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Any, sorry, do that
Oh, sorry.
for any discussion?
Just gonna vote.
It's overreach.
It is, don't we have a Jake Dixon and a Jake Leach? So it is
Yeah.
okay that I would say, is it a he or a she, right? You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a good question.
Or they.
Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so somebody can take Wendy and Eric's place, maybe, on the Conservation Commission.
May need more chairs.
There are 4 in this spot.
You're in the front row.
Bill? And then I can just.
Drag your
Bill
chairs.
and Marley can come up and sit in the back chairs.
I like to be in the back.
I didn't know I had to sing.
It's a script, Marley.
Well, it's a suggestion, it's not a script.
Yeah, ours is in outline form, so it'll be a little more informal. We meet monthly on Thursdays. Gabby is our select board representative, and we would like to say to her and to the select board how much we appreciate having that liaison. At our Regional Conservation Commission meeting a couple of years ago, we learned that we are about the only town who does that. Other towns were very envious that we have that direct connection with the select board, so thanks to all of you. 2 of our meetings each year are with this Regional Conservation Commission group, and those meetings tend to be our continuing education. There's usually a theme put together by whoever is hosting it. We've done, I can't even remember, but, and we also share with each other about what our different commissions and groups are doing. For the first time in 2018, we had representatives from the Rec Commission come to our meeting. We went to a Planning Commission meeting. We had Danny come from the road crew, and we found that really valuable, and we hope to continue at least a once a year back and forth visiting to each other's meetings. We also have individual members who are active in other conservation organizations. Linda Hecker and Gabby are involved actively with Wyndham Regional Commission. Marley is chair, I think, of the Wyndham Regional Woodlands Association. I'm the representative for the Green River Watershed Alliance. Karen and Bill are involved with Guilford Preservation, Inc. I continue to work with the Guilford 6th grade, and Bill is our representative to a new group called the Southeast Vermont Wildlife Linkage Group.
In addition to that, I'm on the Urban Forestry Council.
So each of our meetings, we usually have reports from those groups too. Karen's going to talk about our ongoing work.
Well, some of our ongoing work. As you probably all know, that with a grant that Linda was able to get us called a, what's it called? Small, not a small.
Tiny grant.
Tiny grant, little grant. The trail out on the carriage trail was always there. It was a thoroughfare, but we were able to improve it mightily. And so the ongoing work there is maintenance, which includes always plant invasives, of which there are many in there. This year we spent a lot of time, like in June, pulling up garlic mustard, which we've never had before, but happily it's really easy to pull up. So that was a good thing to do. We also, some of us, also removed some cow parsnip plants that were close to Guilford roadsides.
Terrible.
It's not wild parsnip. Here's where I get kind of cranky about common names. Cow parsnip does have a phototoxicity, but only if you decide to break the stem and get the sap on you and then expose yourself to sunlight. It's nowhere near like that wild parsley, which is, it looks like yellow Queen Anne's lace. That stuff is really toxic. People think it's beautiful, so they pick it and then they get hideously burned. So the one that we have around here, it's huge. Can't mistake it. Just don't pick it. is my advice on that one. I personally also led a bunch of walks on the carriage trail for seniors, and this is in collaboration with Guilford Cares. And we had a group from the Cheshire Medical Center come over. There were about 40 of them. I know, plus some of ours, Guilford seniors. It was wonderful. They had a great time, and so did I. So I continue to do those, mostly in the spring and then again in the fall. Apparently, we also have, we do sometimes do walks, and one of the ones we had most recently was from up to Fort Dummer from the Guilford side, which included a very steep hillside, did it not? But you also went by the place where you can swim. So it was also a look at maybe we could develop some trails in Algiers itself, because there really isn't much of a trail system there. And we announce our walks, and I have a walk list and I send out all this information.
Bill, do you want to be the next part?
Sure.
With the title of New Work
New
in
Work.
2018.
We have a natural resources inventory underway. Patty Smith at Beak is doing the western part, and we get some money, she'll start doing the rest of Guilford next year. She started the map studies, the field work. Members have been helping by contacting landowners for permission, and we've actually had a little bit of trouble with that. We met with the Marlborough Conservation Commission. They have formed a new conservation group, which is still kind of changing its name. I'm the representative, and we just put in for a Kickstarter grant to get that to be a more permanent thing. That group is looking at connections, wildlife connections throughout three towns initially, and eventually from here to Stratton and from here to Dummerston into New Hampshire. And one of the problems, of course, is that as time goes by, big chunks of forest or big chunks of land actually, get subdivided into smaller and smaller pieces, and when you start putting houses on them, it interrupts the flow of natural outflow of critters.
Bill, I'm sorry, is that related to Act 171?
Yeah,
Is that sort of, I mean, I
it-
think it would be helpful to put it in context of people that maybe aren't. like,
Well,
you know.
strangely enough, this started before Act 171 came about, but it certainly ties right into that
Which is a new requirement that the state put in
for the
to
town.
effect for the town plans.
Right, so we're gonna, I will have some feedback to the planning commission for that. We also co-sponsored supporting the Green River Watershed Alliance, the Conservation Easement Workshop for Landowners, Resilient Roads Forum, the Dark and Stormy Night, if some of you got there.
So what was the thing before, a roads forum? Oh, that's the one that you did with
The
the.
Resilient Road, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we had it over at the Grange, which I forgot the new name. Yeah. And goals for next year, I'm gonna give that to somebody else. One of the things that I should say is that Marley and I are supposed to meet a little early today to talk about emerald ash borer, because it's gonna be here all throughout Guilford, probably within the next 3 years. And I'm in the Urban Forestry Council, which has kind of been spearheading the response to that. Basically, right now, it's no longer containment, it's what do we do now that it's here? So,
Wow.
yeah, so we're
Offensive.
gonna have to think about that, and we'll probably come back and talk to you about that. And then
Yeah,
I'll
the
let-
federal quarantine is going to be lifted, so that may change how that works.
Yes.
And there's some suggestions on how, there's private landowners and their issues, but we'll mostly be talking about how the town can deal with ash trees on town property and identify
Roads.
hazard trees. Yeah, along, that's what I meant. Yeah,
Roads.
and right of way.
Yeah,
So it'll be another planning opportunity. But, if there's a lot of dead trees all of a sudden hanging over the roads, that could be a hazard and, will be a budget issue too, so. Well, thinking ahead about that will be good.
There were a couple more new things. We contributed several articles on watersheds to the August issue, 2018 issue of the Gazette. We sponsored and helped with the stream table and the watershed display at the Guilford Fair. And we worked with the Recreation Commission on the spooky walk on the trail, and that was fun. Our goals and plans for 2019, we also have a vacant spot, and we have some ideas. We're especially hoping to find voices from communities that aren't well represented on our commission, like the hunting community, snowmobiling, other people who enjoy the outdoors, so farming. So we have queries out to several people, hoping that we can have those voices represented. We will continue work on the natural resources inventory. We've been able to use our budget up to this point to pay Patty Smith, and with our budget request from next year, we're hoping that we will be able to continue to do that. It looks like it'll be a 3-year project. We began work on the town website with Peter, our section of the town website this year. Kind of got put on hold, but it's a goal to finish that up in 2019. We'll continue maintenance on the carriage trail. We would like to extend the trail deeper into Weeks Forest with the interpretation dealing with forest stewardship. So that's a long-term goal. And we hope to continue our meetings, our connections with the Planning and Recreation Commissions and Road Commissioner. That's it.
Thank you.
And I have a copy to give to you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well done.
So impressive. It's just amazing what everybody's doing. It's just incredible. I don't know if you want to put this in the Gazette too, or in some, maybe some form, but I just think it's so compelling what everybody's doing in town. It's just so.
Yeah, we will continue. It is a goal of ours to contribute something to almost every issue, so
Okay.
we will continue.
But just the overview of what,
Mhm.
of all of the activities of the Conservation Commission and how many people are involved in all of the areas that you're involved in, it's pretty impressive. Bill, I would ask you, I know you've sent Peter and me some information on the emerald ash borer. Is it something that we need to talk about at town meeting?
Yeah, we probably do, because we need probably gonna need some money to remove trees. Right now, it used to be, should we cut them before they die or after they die? Consensus right now is cut them before, and I have some prices on how much that's gonna be per inch, whatever. And so, before we do all of that, we need to have somebody go out and do an inventory of all the municipal trees that we're worried about and decide whether we want to cut them or whatever. There is an inoculation for trees that are special, so we can probably save some trees, but and it's only a 1 or 2 time injection thing, so it's not like forever, like the elm trees. So you will need some money.
So an inventory, can that be accomplished in the winter?
Yes.
Who might do it? I mean, we don't need to answer all these questions, but I think we need to figure out when it could be done, who might do it, how much it might cost to do it, how much it might cost to do the tree removals and disposals, I assume.
Right, the disposal is also a problem because you gotta get the bark off right away.
And then, and we are working on budgets right now for 2020, which means July 1st, June 30th next year.
It's not an immediate crisis because it hasn't been identified in the town, but there's also ash yellows, so a lot of the ash trees are dying before the ash borer even gets here, so they're tending to be dead trees that are leaning over the road, and the road crew, I would assume, needs support in encouraging landowners to allow their larger roadside trees to be cut if they're a hazard, so.
And there's another problem. The reason why people are cutting live trees is because once they die, they're extremely hazardous to cut down, even with cutting them off in sections because they fall apart.
Yeah.
And are dangerous to people nearby.
So, Charlie.
Is there a possible market for the trees if they're cut before they die?
Yeah, we can sell it for lumber. But you gotta get the bark off.
So there's something that
Right.
could be to help support the funds to do the cleanup.
Or it could even be firewood that,
Well, that's also true. Again,
go to
you get the bark off, and it's good to move around. The other problem is that often towns have the road crew do the cutting. And again, it's a dangerous thing. The Urban Forestry Council is trying to get together a game of logging for road crews to cut elm trees.
They're trying to get together what?
Get together a course, basically, on how to cut elm trees.
it's chainsaw safety and.
It's chainsaw safety
ash
and,
trees.
yeah.
A different way of cutting
So-
down trees that's very safe.
It seems to me that perhaps an action here is that the two of you,
Yeah.
Peter and Danny, get together to think about next steps.
Okay.
If there's some, because if we need money between July 1st, 2019 and June 30th, 2020, we need to be working on it this month in December.
Immediately, you need to get money for the inventory.
Okay, so may I ask the four of you to get together and figure out how much that might increase the budget or impact the budget?
I can coordinate that.
Great, thanks, Peter.
Thank you.
Well, and also if, I'm not sure about how to coordinate with possible markets for either lumber or firewood, but that would be a good thing to be part of the inventory because a lot of people still burn wood and build things. I'm not sure whether there's, we could put together some kind of, somebody who is interested in sawing it or selling it for firewood, or whether landowners who abut the trees that need to go
Somebody
should
should
be
start a whole business
responsible.
there, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's just, you know, how to have a whole system.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is the CC4G closeout public hearing. And you have something on that, right?
I did. I recently spoke with Isaac Wagner, who's been consulting with CC4G, and he noted that, as I was also aware that the CDBG planning grant for the Community Collaborative for Guilford will be coming to a close at the end of this year, and as part of the agreement that the town made in receiving this grant, is there needs to be a final public hearing with an update to the public about this. And so he drafted a warning for that meeting for you all to review. It's, as he put it to me, 99% of it is boilerplate language from ACCD regarding specifics of what should be included in there. It needs to happen before the end of the year, and his idea was that it would be the most convenient to have it either just before or just after a select board meeting. And so, speaking with Sheila and getting back to him,
Is he proposing on the 10th?
nope, he's proposing on the 26th of December at 6 p.m. Half an hour prior to the select board meeting.
Is everybody going to be here on the 26th?
I will not be in town for that meeting.
Gabby?
I won't be here.
Are we going to have a quorum on the 26th?
I can come.
I think I could communicate via phone.
Yeah, I'll be here.
I'll be here. We have
So there is a quorum.
Okay. Just checking because it is the day after Christmas.
Some of us are Jewish.
Some of us are. Okay, so we need a motion to warn a public hearing on the CC4G closeout grant at 6 p.m. on December 26th.
I so move.
I shall second it.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you. The next item on the agenda is Penny had submitted a proposal for consideration of changing our payroll schedule from weekly to bi-weekly. Is that?
Yep.
And Penny here?
Yes,
You're
she
Penny,
is.
you're here. Would you like to present that to the community?
Well, I can do that. Not sure why I'm presenting to the community because it's payroll and in-house.
Let's select board, yes.
That's all right. October 24th, in conversation with Lori, who works with NEMRIC, which all our modules for the town are NEMRIC. Our cash receipts, payroll, accounts payable, general ledger, dogs, it goes on and on. But anyways, in conversation, she comes to the office at least 4 times a year to work with me or whoever else in the town, depending on what the needs are. And with that, we were discussing payroll, because it is done in-house weekly. And it was suggested that maybe we switch to bi-weekly, which is not uncommon throughout the state, rather municipality, state employees, private corporations. It's pretty much standard bi-weekly. So in conversation, it sounded like something maybe the select board should think about for a couple of reasons. One thing, going bi-weekly, it actually will save anywhere from 4 to 6 hours a month man hours, which to me is given those 4 to 6 hours to devote more to the town and what maybe needs to be done here. And if they do decide to do this, it would go into effect, the last weekly paycheck would be December 24th. It doesn't change the tax rate or the base, what people are paying. They don't pay any more or any less. The only difference is rather than getting a pay stub weekly, they will get it bi-weekly or 26 times a year versus 52. So,
sorry.
and to me, it's just kind of one more step we can take moving forward to the future and kind of moving with the times without feeling anything. Because it doesn't, outside of, like I said, receiving that piece of paper once versus bi-weekly. I just thought, it's something to think about.
You had another benefit, I think, listed on your form. Of
Mondays being hectic.
the Mondays that we
Well, yeah, I
overlap.
mean, bi-weekly or the second and fourth Monday of the month is a select board meeting. Working on the warrants
It's different.
that Monday and doing payroll every Monday, it kind of crosses.
Gotcha.
And it will cross eventually, but if we do this effective really for the first of the year. I already checked the calendar, it would be 4 months before the two kind of clashed, if you want to call it that. But by then, I think we would be into a rhythm, and at that point, would not even think about what we were doing except payroll.
For 1 minute, Danny, could I ask you, historically, why does the town office do payroll instead of ADP or something like that? Does it cost a lot of money for ADP to do payroll?
It's an expense. It's about $5,000 a year.
Okay.
That I did find out. In the past, they did have it out at one time, and actually, I think within 6 months of me coming on board is when they brought it back in-house.
So
It's quite a
$5,000.
process. You really have to think about what you're doing, but it does save the town money as far as that goes. And because with that, people don't realize I do monthly reports, and then I do the quarterly for federal and state. And then coming up in January, I've already scheduled with NEMRIC. The W-2s are all done from here. And I need help with that. I will not do
Yeah.
W-2s by
I mean, it
myself.
seems like you're approaching $5,000 with all of that quarterly, monthly, quarterly, W-2s, plus the regular work that you do on a weekly basis at this point.
Right, and then, and like I said.
I mean, I have not done the, I can't do the calculations off the top of my head, but
Yeah, I couldn't either.
maybe you're talking about hours of your time, hours of Peter's time.
Right. I've come in on days off with the door locked, especially when you do your quarterlies, because you really need to think about and concentrate on what you're doing without interruption. And really, you should with payroll. But I think going bi-weekly, like I said, in the long run, it will save 4 to 6 hours a month average. I don't know exactly, because I don't say, okay,
Yeah.
I'm doing it this long. And so not only doing it in-house are we saving money, but then going bi-weekly, we're saving additional monies within the year if you actually
Dan?
I'm not in favor of this, what she wants to do. I got 4 guys over there. We got a system that's been working well for years. Stay the weekly system, because everybody has their payments taken out. A lot of us have a weekly payment. And it's just gonna screw everything all up going to bi-weekly. Then you get these big weeks in the wintertime, you're gonna be putting all these hours in, and they're gonna whack the hell out of you because you got all these hours in for overtime. And I'm not in favor of it, and all the guys over at the garage are not in favor of it.
And that is your option. I'm just have a suggestion, and that's
I
what
could
I'm
see
here
if
for.
we were a big outfit and had 20, 30 employees, yeah, probably it would go, but we only got 8 people, or not even that, so stay the way we are. That's my feeling, and I got the 4 guys over there, their feelings are the same way.
Dan, what do you mean that you think you're gonna get whacked
Well, you say like in the wintertime,
Because-
you're doing, say we get in a bunch of overtime hours in,
Mm-hmm.
so you're doing 2 weeks worth of overtime hours, but what do you think they're gonna do when they get you in that higher tax bracket?
It's the same no matter what.
Well, that's.
Just, you know, I just want, yeah, if you're in a tax bracket annually, it doesn't have to do with weekly. And then your weekly item would be your overtime would be calculated the same with, you
In a
know,
week.
being a week.
Per week, not,
But no one's in favor of this.
I think the only change would be that you'd get 2 pay stubs instead of 4 most months. And, I mean, I can see it could potentially be a problem if people don't know what's happening and then all of a sudden don't get a paycheck one week. But really, it's not changing your taxes, it's not changing your overtime, everything would be the same except you just get more money and fewer disbursements.
But we're not in favor of it anyway, so you go over that, you're gonna have a hoodoo uprising, so.
Kind of figured, but I just, you know, it was brought up in conversation, so
Yeah.
I'm here to just let you know my feelings, and Dan has his feelings, and to me, it doesn't matter one way or the other. I do it, but someday we need to get out of the dark.
so I appreciate your raising the issue. What I am wondering about is the real cost of doing payroll on a weekly versus a bi-weekly basis. And you've estimated just hours per month, but you haven't estimated how much it costs the town to do its own payroll on an annual basis.
Well, I do know to do it outside of the town, it's gonna cost you $5,000.
I'm just wondering, with salary, overhead, benefits, time that you have to come in on a weekend or something like that to do something.
On
that's
salary, so figure it out.
Producing the W-2s, et cetera, how much time that takes when it can just be generated like this, you know, on a weekly or a bi-weekly or a monthly basis.
What do you mean generated like this?
By agents,
Because-
you still have to feed them information, yep.
Right, but you're doing it twice a month versus 4 times a month. And the
I
monthly
understand.
is monthly regardless. You have until the 10th or the 15th of the month to do your monthly reports. When you
So-
have your quarterlies, you have the 15th, like, come the end of December 31st, I've got to have all my quarterlies done for September, October, November, December by January 15th.
But
That's
if a payroll
federal,
firm
state.
did this, would you have to do it, or would you just?
No, they would do
They
it.
would do it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think what the question really needs to be is, do you have time to do payroll as a general proposition, or do you think it's something worth outsourcing for $5,000 to $8,000?
Well, that's something I can,
Like, do you have the time to do it right now, or you know?
that I do not.
Like, I mean, right now, the time that you work on payroll, do you feel like you're overloaded work-wise? I think that's what we're getting at. Are you overloaded
it's not.
work-wise such that you don't have the time to do payroll and you're working late? Or is this something that you feel you can, take care of regularly if it moved to a bi-weekly?
Oh, no, I feel I can take care of it. I'm just saying there are times like your quarterlies or the W-2s, I'm coming in on a Friday because it really needs to be done when there are no interruptions. You're talking about people's payroll. So there are times when, yes, I do put in more hours. If you, like I said, if you want to figure 8 hours a month, and then for the quarterlies another, that's 24, so say 30 months every quarter. I mean 30 hours, excuse me, every quarter, times an hourly rate.
So
just give you an estimate.
Rather than sucking our thumbs, I think there is an impact on your doing payroll and payroll being done in the town that is a dollar and time impact. That we don't have adequate information to assess 2 things. One is, should it continue to be done by the town, or would it be more efficient to be done by a payroll service company? And 2, should we change the period of the payroll periods? And I think without that, I mean, just to make a suggestion is, it's good to start a conversation, but I feel like we don't have enough data in terms of time involved, and any impact that it would have on employees if we were to change things. You're talking about coming out of the dark ages, but into what and at what cost? And so I think I think it's good to have started the conversation, but personally I feel like I don't have enough information other than to say 5 people in the highway department versus 3 people in the town, 4 or 5 people in the town office.
But I think
Like
the
it
other
or
piece
don't,
of that conversation is talking about it. I mean, understanding exactly what it means to be paid twice a month versus 4 times a month, and understand both sides of that equation. Every time I've been with a company that has made a change like this, there's always an educational process of, it's going to change my budgeting if I go from once a week, getting paid every week to getting paid once a month. Obviously, that changes my whole budget process. So I think it's important to sit down and have the conversation.
It doesn't change your income, it changes
doesn't
your
change your
budget.
income,
Yeah.
but it changes your budgeting. And I think
Your
what
budget time.
Dan, might be sensitive to is, those changes, but it's also understanding what pieces do change.
Yeah.
That it doesn't change your overall, salary, it doesn't mess with overtime. It might mess with when you get that overtime paid, instead of 1 week, it might come, during a 2-week time frame. But, so I think it's a great thing to look at, and I agree with you on your perspective that maybe we should have an outside sourcing company do it, if the time and energy that you're putting in is
Can be better
more,
spent elsewhere.
right, more than you can really.
Well, what action should we put in the minutes?
Well, I think, I've stated my thoughts. Dan has, you have, lacking information. So I think right now, really, there's nothing we do. So if we're to do this, I think it really should be on FY '21. Because we're doing FY '20.
Well, it could also be, it's not tied to the budget,
Right.
so it could be done anytime,
Well,
if we decided to do it. The question is, what is the data that we need to make that decision? And I think if we have a better estimate of what the impact is on your time and 1 or 2 proposals from a payroll firm to do it on a weekly or a bi-weekly basis, we would be better informed. We would be able to make a better decision. So. Ellie.
Can I ask a question? Were you really even bringing up doing it outside?
No, but that's all right. If the question was asked, and I did have discussion of that.
Yeah. And there are 2 companies that I've worked for in the past looking into outside accounting or payroll being done. It's quite expensive. I can't give you dollar figures because I haven't even thought about that right now regarding this stuff, but it can be quite expensive.
I know, we just don't know how much it costs us to do it in-house, right?
But I guess my other question is, how are you gonna calculate that anyway?
That's gonna be hard.
Penny's salaried, so if she works,
I don't get paid over.
so she's not
She
an
doesn't
hourly
get-
employee, so if she works, I guess I feel like saying, maybe I'm throwing Penny under the bus, but if she works a little extra and we save $5,000 to $10,000, then if she's okay with it, I'm okay with it. Because it's gonna end up, if she works more hours, she's gonna cost less per hour, so it benefits the town, right? So I don't really understand how we could possibly calculate that. My sense is that Penny's not saying, I can't do this, I don't have the time, we need to look into outsourcing. It's that she's just looking into maneuvering the payment schedule.
Moving, yeah.
Finding
Time
ways to
around.
save money.
Well, just to be able to fill time elsewhere that maybe, could be better, more efficiently spent.
Well, I think at a minimum, we ought to have a discussion, aside from who does the work, just on the issue of being paid weekly versus bi-weekly, just so that everyone understands, the conversation. So I would sit there, I'll welcome to have a conversation about this with, if you want to join, we can sit down with Dan and his crew and just explain what this is, what's meant by doing, moving to this step.
I'm listening to what their concerns
And
are.
understanding what their concerns are. Absolutely. But because, I mean, the last thing we want to do is get everyone excited about something. But if the issues are fully understood, they may not be as grave as everyone seems to think they are. Would be my recommendation.
Steve?
So,
I would also suggest that you look at what other towns in Vermont have done, who've transitioned from from weekly to bi-weekly, and see what the issues were, real or imagined. You might learn a lot about, how other towns dealt with it, and, it might be a 8 months transition, if there's any transition, rather than, December 10th.
Now to December.
Yeah, no,
I think
that's a good point.
I think you just do the research and look at what's going on around you at the same time, and then have people talk to people and say, this is what we thought was going to happen, and this is what did happen. Could be real, could be imagined, could be exactly what Danny says, it could be whatever, but I think it would be well worth looking at what's going on.
So I think what we understand from this is Penny's willing to do it, either way, any way that's decided, that the road crew needs a little bit more information, which you are willing to take on, and that Peter maybe will do a VLCT question to other towns who might have gone through this to see if they've encountered any issues, or have any advice to give. Anybody else have any other?
And then report back at a certain time.
Yeah, maybe on the 10th, if there's time to do that. Gabby, did you have
I'd also
something
say,
else?
see what's common too. I find it's very uncommon to be paid weekly nowadays, and I think maybe when Penny says we're going, getting out of the dark ages, what she actually means is, she doesn't mean that exactly.
She doesn't
She
mean
means that it's uncommon. It's a luxury that we provide our employees. If it would put them out, I think we need to know that. I think it really is solely a budgeting thing for when you expect to get your next check. So I think being paid bi-weekly is extremely common. And actually, I was in a position where it went from bi-weekly to monthly. And they were only cutting paychecks once a month. So you could do various things. You can make the transition. It's just, I feel like you need to just make sure people understand and make sure they have enough time to then budget.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
So, Penny, thank you for bringing this up. A few more conversations to be had.
And we really do want to keep the people who work for this town, both in the office and on the road, happy. We are indebted to you and dependent on you, really.
And I hope you have a great vacation.
Enjoy the warmth.
Thank you, Penny. So, the next thing on the agenda is the select board is going to reconsider adopting the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance. We've all received, and it has been on the website, the edited document and the changes that were made to the flood and fluvial erosion hazard, and those changes were made in response to resident concerns and just after lots of conversations. We've had a year in which the select board, the floodplain administrator, regional and state representatives, and the planning and conservation commissions have listened, addressed, and responded to concerns expressed by residents in the most affirmative and inclusive way possible. And we arrived at the revised flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance at the beginning of November. Is that when we worked on the last one? And put it on the website, and also put out a notice on Facebook and on Front Porch Forum that it had been done. And this was an opportunity for the select board to discuss this ordinance, adoption of this ordinance one more time. And because of all of the public comments at prior meetings and in public forums, I'm going to keep comments from the public tonight to a total of 10 minutes. And I would ask very respectfully that if people have comments to make, that also a solution or some kind of positive recommendation be made, as opposed to just fears or worries or something like that. There will be, if we decide to take a vote, if we vote in the affirmative to pass the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance tonight, a public forum devoted entirely to this issue in January. And then, should we decide to vote it, and should there be a petition by the public to ask the select board to reconsider its vote, and there is better wording than I'm giving you there, so. We have all had this to look at, and I don't know if the select board wishes to discuss this any further, or if people would like to make a motion.
I make a motion that we pass the ordinance.
Adopt the revised
Adopt the
flood and
revised,
fluvial
yes,
erosion
thank
hazard
you.
ordinance.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Gabby, thank you. Is there further discussion?
Well, I think that in our conversations about this, we've really tried to have a process that's open for people who want to state their objections to it. I mean, there's a whole playbook for how the public can respond to this if they feel that that's what they need to do. I mean, that's part of our adoption of this now.
Yes, and
is
those
that
that's all public information.
that it's all very clear what other people can do if they choose
Right,
to.
there's an articulated pathway
Yes.
for the citizens of Guilford to respond to the passing of the ordinance.
So we do have 10 minutes. Charlie, if you would like to make some comment. Let me just ask if the select board has any more.
I'm gonna just simply say, I'm gonna come back to my original, the first time we had the discussion around this, and say that I am gonna move in favor of it for this meeting. But it is also my expectation that this should go before the town to be voted on via Australian ballot at the next town meeting. So my hope is that the residents of the town do bring forth another petition the way they did the last time, because this is something I think the town should vote on as a town, not a select board. But my seat on the select board in my voting in favor of this when the time comes as a select member is solely because I do believe for the town there is the benefit that this ordinance brings to the town for all the reasons. I'm not going to sit here and rehash everything. But my expectation, my hope is that the residents of the town of Guilford do re-sign this petition, and this is the only way we can get it to a town vote, is the way I've understood this.
Thank you. And I would like Peter to refresh our memories on what actually the town vote would be on.
Okay.
Because it's not on the ordinance.
No, but it
Okay,
needs to
so-
be worded correctly.
Yes, so I just want to,
So the adoption of an ordinance can only be done by a select board of a town within the state of Vermont. The only way that vote can go before the public, and the only action public can take on that is that public has to submit a petition to the select board signed by a minimum of 5% of registered voters of Guilford. And that have to be verified by the town clerk. And then once that happens, then the select board has 60 days to hold a vote, and the action taken by residents of that vote is to disapprove of the ordinance. Residents cannot vote to approve it, so if a resident were to vote no to disapprove it, that means that that vote agrees with the select board decision. If you vote yes to disapprove it, it means you are opposed to the ordinance that the select board has adopted.
there is a folder or a piece of paper called A Lesson in Civics in the town office to explain all of this, but I just wanted to be clear that this is not a yay or nay vote on the ordinance. It is a should the select board disapprove this ordinance. So, okay, Charlie, you were first.
Okay, as you all know, I'm dead set against this ordinance. And one of the reasons is because it discriminates. And by that I mean a person that has a dwelling near a stream with a half an acre has to give up more of their rights to their property than someone that has 20 or 100 acres with a stream running through or by them. So it's not really an equal and fair to all the people. Now, if you stop and look at the amount of land in Guilford that is in current use, or what else is the word for it, land conservation. Now those people voluntarily give up their rights to their land to let someone manage it, and in turn are awarded or reimbursed with a much lower property taxes. Whereas the person with only a half an acre or a couple acres, they're kind of being penalized or punished for this. They're not being awarded anything, and in actuality, if they wanted to do anything with their property, not only do they have to pay a large amount of tax, but they would have to hire engineer, lawyer, to be able to, like, say, add on to their house in the event their family increased in size. They might have to add another room on to bring their parents in that lost their home or whatever. So it's not really a fair playing field. That's kind of my opinion on it.
Thank you. One second. I think that I'm going to get myself in trouble here. The current use tax is, the state grants the exemption, not the town. So the town, it doesn't have anything to do with the town tax bills, just as a point. And it's the same thing with the conservation.
Right, but they pay less because they voluntarily give up their right to their property. So it's not really fair, and what it basically amounts to is, like I say, we're being sort of, how do I want to say, not punished, but we're kind of footing the bill. We're kind of footing the bill for everyone else, and not being reimbursed for that. Now, if you wanted to somehow award us or reimburse us with a reassessment of our property value for people that live by a stream, then the only way you're going to balance your budget is to charge more for the people with a larger piece of property that don't live near a stream. I mean, and I suppose there could be some legal action taken from people that feel like they're being put under the gun here. I mean, a half an acre of property is not a lot when you're talking like at least a 50-foot buffer, and maybe more depending on what kind of if you're in a special flood area, it could even be more than that. The way the language in the ordinance reads is that at any given time the maps and the boundaries can change. So back in 2000,
Nature.
Yeah, well, back in 2007, you adopted this other FEMA thing, right? So now 10 years later, we're going a little bit further. So who's to say 5 or 10 years down the road, because the language is open, that it might be a 500-foot. I mean, and the more people get afraid of climate change, the more they might want to expand all this. So I think you really should think a lot more about this.
Thank you. Mr. Martin.
All right, as I listened to the conversation about this ordinance and the history of its consideration and then the proposal to go forward, I just can't help but wonder, didn't we already take all the steps that we discussed tonight, except for the public vote? It was voted by the select
We
board.
just had, did you read the issues about why we couldn't have the vote then?
I still don't understand. I
So-
guess I am asking for some clarification
Okay.
on why that vote couldn't happen.
So we had a local issue on a general state ballot, or we thought we should put it on, and we could not legally do that. And so we had to do the whole thing all over again, basically. It just would not have been permitted to be on the ballot the way we thought we were going to do it, which is that whole lesson in civics that we've been trying to make available to the public for 3 months now, I think, just because we messed up. As a select board, trying to figure out how to do our part and then figure out how to get it to the town vote.
Based on the response we got from the townspeople. I mean, that was.
That's one of the scary things about this bylaw is you feel that you can learn as you go on a law that is so intrusive and so all-consuming for quite a few people. You are taxing your poor and benefiting your rich. And government and any solution where you have complete and utter control corrupts complete and utterly. There's not oversight committees, there's not people who are going to double check on this, and this. We'll figure it out. I've heard, oh, well, maybe we'll change things afterward. No, whatever you vote on tonight is the law. It's not going to change afterwards. You're not going to be able to say we made a mistake. You can't go back and change some of the things that are in there. Once you've voted on it, then that's your ordinance. And should it stick, then that's what it's going to be. You know, and some of the articles that are in there are just appalling to think that you would treat community members that way. And I think that's where a lot of the community members are coming from, is they feel like their sense of community has been ripped from them just in the approach of this. You couldn't come ask people to mind their trees or watch for the ash borer or, geez, we need to pay attention to our rivers and streams. No, you have to mandate, fine, and permit fine those who are poor enough or sucker enough or unfortunate enough to live in what now you've determined to be a certain zone or a certain lumping. So this idea of, oh, we're not quite sure, we'll define it later, without any of that being in provision, how can you feel comfortable voting on it when you really don't know all the details?
It should be noted that, you know, as concerning as the wording of this proposal is, that there is this map that is attached with this proposal. You know, and if you have ever called FEMA as a concerned citizen, especially if you're in the National Flood Insurance Program, which I know most people are not, and you ask them about an inaccuracy that you see on the map, you know, they tell you flat out that the only map, that they can only go by one map. That map is the map that the local community or the local governing body adopts. So when we adopt this map,
We just had a lot of inaccuracies.
FEMA is going to have an opportunity at that point to reconsider their flood zone designations in this town. Our local control is going to be gone the minute we adopt it.
We have 2 minutes left. Linda, did you want to say something?
I had multiple things to say, but I was unaware that a revision had happened. I was aware that considerations were being taken, so I'm at a loss, having not read that. One idea I have in terms of extreme weather events, I mean, we can have drought and forest fire as well. So why aren't we looking at a whole big picture here? I mean, for me, having been in agriculture my entire life, these extremes started, I was aware of it back in the 70s.
Right.
So, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. For me personally, living in the situation I do, you're robbing me of my dream. I don't know if I would ever really be able to do what I would like to do, but it's robbing me of the possibility of my dream.
Sorry, any other comment?
The only comment I'd like to offer is for anybody who's involved in this entire discussion, that you be very clear in your own minds which parts are FEMA, which is not really related to.
They are twisted around like that, you would not believe it.
Well,
I've looked into this so much.
So, but when this is all over, regardless of whether the select board decides to adopt or not to adopt the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance tonight, the National Flood Insurance Program, which the town belongs to and which is governed by FEMA, will still be in place. You know, that's none of that's going to change.
But there won't be permitting, there won't be just a tax
Right,
on
I'm
certain people.
I'm not arguing that.
It will be across the board and across the country, the same rules for every single person. Whereas here in Guilford, we have one set of rules for one set of people and a whole nother set of rules for themselves.
Anyway, so as long as people are
Thank you.
clear that there's a FEMA
There is the
component
FEMA
that is not involved with this Agency of Natural Resource mapping that judges and guides the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance.
Thank you. So we pretty much kept it to 10 minutes, I think, everybody for their comments. Are we ready to take a vote?
Well, I just also wanted to point out that any landowner who feels that their taxes are unfair given the value of their land has the opportunity for a grievance.
There are several such strategies and options in the ordinance. Okay. So all in favor of adopting the flood and fluvial erosion hazard ordinance?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. I will once again post on Front Porch Forum and Facebook, and we will also post on the town website what the next steps for town residents who are opposed to this ordinance can be in order to get it to a ballot vote on town meeting day.
Just a quick question about Front Porch Forum, sorry, Front Porch Forum. Can't spit it out fast enough. Is this where you supposedly have been having these conversations?
No, it's not a conversation, it's
Or
just, here's the agenda.
and taking
here's the
input or
step,
taking comments?
Here's where you can find information. No.
Okay, because
No.
I somehow missed all of those.
No, it's just trying to share information about process and agendas and minutes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So,
And
thank
so,
you.
Tammy, if you look on the town website, there's a document that says Flood and Fluvial Erosion Hazard Ordinance Communication.
Yeah, I've read that.
And it's right there, and the next steps.
Yeah, but what I didn't see is you've gone over and over and over again, how about you listen to the people and how everyone got a chance to speak and that you've taken their considerations, and I didn't know when that happened. That's where I was where all these conversations had happened.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is the Wyndham Solid Waste Management Director District. Sorry. So Cheryl resigned. I think it's after the last meeting, in an email to me and you.
That's correct.
And I had a chance to talk to her over the holidays, and it is personal. A lot of different personal things have happened that are just making it difficult for her to serve this anymore. So they're just it's just eating into a lot of her available time with different family members things going on with different family members. So I would like to propose that the select board prepare a letter of appreciation to her for her time, her energy, and the expertise that she's contributed to Wyndham Solid Waste on behalf of Guilford over more years than I've been on the select board. I don't actually know for how long, but I know that I've always relied on her to be a good source of
Sorry for the interruption.
information, counsel, advice, patience, and some of the meetings that I've sat at, I've just marveled at her ability to sit through all of this and understand it all. Which leads me to my second thing, is that we do need to identify a replacement. And as I think about the challenges of sitting on that board I think we should all think about what we might want to know, and see if we want to invite Bob Spencer to come to the next meeting or the last meeting in December. Maybe the next meeting is better, so that we can figure out how best to go forward, absent Cheryl, because it's just, I don't really know what to do right now, so.
Who's the alternate?
I'm the alternate.
Oh, so you should know what to do.
Thank you very much. I think we need to find somebody else.
Madam Chair, this is BCTV cameraman who's not a Guilford resident. Would it be appropriate for you to ask Cheryl to submit your report, or is she just too tied up for that?
She's actually really tied up,
Yeah.
and she does report to us. She sends us documents monthly, so we have all of the reports.
We have the last report.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of, like, what should we do with that information, and how should we plan about going forward?
I apologize for asking the question. I just have filmed so many meetings where you guys have talked about the Wyndham Solid Waste Management District.
Right, you know.
So I just,
And we had, Bob
Trash
had offered to come, he had offered to edit our document about why we were gonna, when we were considering whether we were gonna exit from the district or not. He offered to edit it and give us some feedback on it, and I invited him a week or so ago to do that, despite the fact that we've already withdrawn, just to get his expertise and to his input on that. But we may want to ask him some other questions as well. And so I would think that maybe our action should be two. One is to thank Cheryl, and the second would be to submit to Peter some questions of issues that we might want to consider, so that we can make an informed decision about recruitment, hopefully. I mean, I don't know who
So
we might
we
recruit.
need a
but-
profile of what the job is
Yeah.
and what kind of skills and talents that the person who would fill that position
I mean,
needs.
Cheryl was on the finance committee, and I feel like, I mean, I have sat in meetings, not a lot, but some, and it's just, it feels like it goes by really fast. And so somebody needs to be able to spend the time and really dig deep, and that's just not, it's not something that I can do, I can take on behalf of the select board, so. So any comments?
When was her resignation effective?
Immediately.
It was,
So in the meantime, Sheila, are you going to the meetings?
there hasn't been a meeting yet. I'm not sure if the next meeting is around my surgery. That's one of the other things, but we may be unrepresented at that meeting. I think it's December 12th, I'm not sure. I have to check and see, but it's on my radar. I just don't know if I can do it yet.
I guess I'm not sure. I feel like Bob Spencer needs to come. I feel like we've always, always sort of had a representative. I'm not sure what more he can add to, a skill.
I don't know
I
if
mean, I'm
people
not
have
sure.
questions.
I guess I'd say if you wanted to come for just general questions, it's one thing. I think, but to start, recruiting, I think we need to do that now. And I think if we have a schedule of the meetings, and then maybe, since you were the alternate, went to some meetings, can sort of give them an overview. But I think we should start recruiting now and not wait for.
Any suggestions? I mean, we have a lot of volunteer positions in town. We have constable, dog officer, conservation commission, recreation commission. I think the planning commission is good. And so I think, did the fire? Cemetery, do you need?
No.
Your fault?
Oh, yes.
The
There's
cemetery.
never, you have to die to get off the cemetery commission. But what about the volunteer fire department?
They've asked for
board?
auxiliary people on, yeah.
On the auxiliary. Oh,
Yeah.
Is their board full?
I don't know.
No, they have
They-
two open positions.
They haven't approached us about it, but,
Well, actually, somebody did approach me on behalf, to bring it forward to the select board from the volunteer fire department board.
We also need an auditor.
oh, that's right, and an auditor. So we have a lot of positions open and not a lot of people stepping up. Ellie?
I just wanted to jump on the bandwagon about having some kind of description about what the job is, but also thinking the Gazette might be a nice place to say, these are the positions in town that if you're interested in, we're looking for volunteers, and this is what they do.
I have in
There
mind.
was a note in the Gazette.
There was
about
one, but I also am gonna try to write an article about volunteering in general for the December 1st deadline with all these positions, so this is gonna be
Good.
added to it. Hopefully we'll see. I was gonna ask you, Miranda, if you wanted to work with me on
Sure.
this.
It's right up our alley.
We have at least 3 days to do this.
Sheila, I would also point out that the planning commission, I think the planning, not to speak for them, but I think the planning commission is the next project they have on the boards is to create a Guilford, you know.
Welcome to Guilford, yeah.
Right, and one of the things that came up in John Christensen's memorial service was the idea to have a town booklet that describes everything, not just the vacant positions, but the positions that are filled. So someone who wants to be, you know, on something, I think it's, I don't think it really ties together to say you need a dog catcher and a constable and you need somebody for Wyndham Solid Waste Management. I think somebody who's interested in waste recycling and things like that would be very interested in that position, not the constable's position, and vice versa. So I think I would echo to some degree what Gabby said. I would start in now by creating the job description that would eventually go into a booklet that says these are the positions that we have available now, and these are the types of interests that you might have if you're interested, because the Conservation Commission interests are entirely different than
Right.
solid waste.
We actually have that information online and in a couple of different spots that I know of. Also, VLCT makes that stuff available. What I don't know is, do we have a Wyndham Solid Waste Management District? Because Cheryl's always been the board member, and first it was Troy and then me, kind of as alternates. But
I'm sure
so-
Bob Spencer can help you.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
So-
that's a good
yeah.
idea.
So my sense is that we should do some work and see who we can think of to recruit and not ask Bob to come here, but maybe I
I
can.
mean, to me, that, you know, I've heard,
I mean, he has volunteered, so.
when Bob approached us to come here, I think I basically said, from my perspective, if there are no big changes coming down the pipe, then, you know, I'm very comfortable. Our assessment is supposed to go down this year. I've heard kind of out there that there are some changes going on that are fairly significant changes. One being the curbside composting that's going on, the solar piece, as well as new equipment being purchased. So I think it would make sense for Bob to come and have a conversation
You mean
on some of
give
those
us an
things.
update?
Yeah, I think there's more to be updated than I originally understood, perhaps. Maybe I haven't discussed this deeply with the board members, so
Yeah.
maybe I should do that first. But I
Um,
think it might make sense to have a conversation with him to
So
understand some of
our,
these things.
our assumption that he didn't need to come and do anymore was based on the July newsletter. They had a newsletter summarizing their year
Gotcha.
and saying all of these things were, you know, in great shape and nothing was much new. And maybe that has changed in the
Yeah,
last
well, that could be in
4
6 months.
4 or 5, 6 months, yeah.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Maybe I should talk to him. It would
Yeah.
appear
That's a
comfortable
great
with
idea.
that.
Why don't you start there? Maybe he
And
has
then,
And maybe there's
board
already a job description
that he
written
foresees for
for
his
that,
board
for
members.
the
I
board
can work
member.
on the job profile and skills and other needs for the position.
Terrific, that would be very
And
helpful.
But I would check to see whether there's,
I will check in with them.
That's great.
many boards do have job descriptions of board members.
And then
We do.
Sheila's gonna contact Bob.
yeah,
Thank you.
okay,
And then you can decide.
thank you. Any further discussion on this?
Thank
So,
Cheryl.
The next item on the agenda is the town office open house, and we had talked about having it on Thursday, the 29th. Penny will be gone, and we've had 0 communications about it or even interest in it. I feel like it's kind of fell flat on its face sort of thing. I don't know how other people feel. I think we should invite the town to stop in whenever, but I don't know that we need to provide cookies and coffee at any given time to make people, unless we want to put it on our buffet counter there.
Do you think there's an expectation, since we talked about it, that we're still?
I've heard not one
Okay,
word.
not one peep?
I don't know if you've heard anything, but I have not.
I agree, I don't think it's necessary.
I have to be there. I'm working that day, so.
Madam Chair, this is BCTV cameraman Ian Keel, who's not a Guilford resident, so asking permission to speak.
You may speak, Ian Keel.
You will probably have an opportunity to talk about your new town office at your town meeting.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
And I would just, from a visual standpoint, you may have some photos that you want to share with your townspeople. And the other thing is, you don't always have to have an open house right after you build the place.
Mhm.
You could get through the winter and maybe have an open house in the spring and maybe tell people at your town meeting. Because you can really get a look at what it looks like when the sun is shining and the sun doesn't go down at 3.
Yeah, right?
So those are my suggestions, and I appreciate you letting me speak.
Thank you for your wisdom.
Thank you, Ian. So, is everybody agreed that we should just let it drop? for
Yes.
now and see how to manage that? Okay, thank you. Warrants. Gabby, do you have warrants tonight?
I'll make the motion to pay the following payroll and warrants. Payroll for the week ending November 18th, 2018, that should be, on the agenda, and at least in the minutes.
Oh, yep.
An amount of $6,043.53. Payroll for the week ending November 25th, 2018, in the amount of $10,521.39. Expense warrant 1910, the amount of $25,957.14. Expense warrant FW10 in the amount of $123. And expense warrant TR11 in the amount of $50,731.78 for a grand total of $93,376.84. The major expenditures in the expense warrant was sand, gravel, health insurance. And just so everybody knows, the expense warrant TR have to do with tax refunds that came from the state. That was the 50,000 plus.
Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Richard. All in favor?
Aye.
Are there communications?
Yes, two very brief ones, and they're both the same. One from Brevard Area Hospice, and the other is from SEVCA. Both were letters thanking the Select Board and Guilford residents for the annual appropriations request that they received this year.
Thank you. Sorry, Ellie.
Can I just add two quick announcements?
You may.
So CC4G is holding 2 parent workshops the first week of December. Tuesday, December 4th, there is a workshop with Karen Fogliati from Greenfield, and that's on heart-conscious communication, which is based on nonviolent communication work of Marshall Rosenberg. And the second is on Thursday, the 6th, and that will be on positive parenting with Janice Stockman. Both will be at the school, so I just want to let people know.
What's the first one again?
It's called Heart Conscious Communication. It's based on the work of Marshall Rosenberg around nonviolent communication.
And this is directed at families or the community in general?
That one's the community in general.
Yeah.
There'll be soup and bread and cheese beforehand, starting at like 4:45, and then the workshop is from 5:30 to 7:30 at the school.
I'm sorry, what was the second one, please?
The second one is positive parenting. That's with Janice Stockman. It'll be from 5:30 to 7 at the school on Thursday the 6th. And there will be dinner and childcare provided. Yeah.
I would like to update the board that Peter and I had a conversation today, and I've had conversations with other people in the community last week about the Better Connections grant, which is, we were supposed to start working on it this week and have it submitted by January 31st, and it is for a planning grant for something to do in Algiers Village. But the more I looked at it, and worked on it last week, the more I felt like we didn't have a what to make a grant for. And I think that there's a lot of possibility for us to be working with Brattleboro stakeholders, different partners, but we haven't built those relationships, and we haven't got, I just feel like we don't have a viable project goal in mind to spend the time at this point applying for a grant, which we did do last year in a big rush, and I thought we should just do it this year well in time, but the more I think about it, I think we should wait and try to build relations and see whether we have something that we really want to do with the state's money in another year. So we would be applying for it January 31st, 2020. I think it's also going to be available on January 31st, 2021, but not January 31st, 2019.
Was that for feasibility?
Yeah.
Feasibility.
Yeah.
Did that have to do with the conversation we had at Living Community Challenge regarding
It
traffic
will
calming?
be, yes, among other things, and it will be carried, we will, there's also been some discussion about that with Friends of Algiers Village, and Peter came back with some information, so we're trying to, we just have like all these disparate pieces that we haven't put together, and we need to do that. And we need to do that with the community. So yes, and hopefully we'll have something on December 14th to talk about when we get together with that committee.
Okay.
Any other communications?
Not for me.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yes, I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, Richard. Is there a second? Yeah.
8:18.
8:18. Okay, we'll adjourn the meeting. Oh, sorry, you're all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.